Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today's video is going to be yet another pattern haul, and this time I'm going to be hauling mainly Vogue patterns from the early 1950s through the mid 1950s. And these were picked up by my mother while she was on a trip to Pennsylvania. They're listed as being $5 each, and then they were 20% off, but there was tax added onto that. So I think in total it cost $216 for all the patterns I'm going to show you in today's video, and hopefully I will end up making my money back on them. My mother showed me, I'd say like a dozen photos of the patterns before purchasing them, and I told her to go ahead and buy them, even though $5 is a little bit more than I typically like to pay for a pattern. But there's some really good ones in here, and she thought they were factory folded, which would have made them worth it. Looking through them now, I don't think they're all factory folded by any means, but they do appear to be in pretty good condition, and the designs are just amazing. So I'm excited to share them with you today and ultimately get them listed. Recently I have been listing patterns in smaller batches as opposed to big lots, so I don't know what the listing situation is going to be with these, but regardless, I hope you enjoy this video. So let's get into it. And top here we have a size 14 Vogue pattern, which is for a 32-inch bust. It's a really cool design. It's a dress with a pencil skirt and a button front and raglan sleeves. And the sleeves have this really cool puffed darted detail. And you can also make this with an optional peplum, and I really love the illustration for this and the design. And at a glance it appears to be factory folded, which is great. Vogue patterns are one of the few brands that didn't number their pieces, so instead of the perforations being 1 or A, they're tunic front or shoulder pad, which makes them much harder to count because you can't just create a list of sort of numbers and erase which one you've come across. You have to write out the name for each piece. So the more of these are factory folded, the better. This is another size 14 one for a cocoon sort of style coat. So it isn't really a swing coat, it actually cups and exaggerates the shape of the back, and it has darts at the shoulders and a seam down the shoulder as well, so it can really fit to your arm. And it's a lovely, very fashionable design, and again I really like the illustration and the hats they paired them with. This was from 1954, it's again a size 14. I love this design. I'm tempted to keep this, but it just really isn't my size. It's a great party or cocktail dress pattern with this wide, almost off the shoulder V-neck. It's got an optional bow at the front and these really long line princess seams that extend from under the arm all the way to the hem. It has a cord skirt and just a lovely amount of volume and shape to it. And this one is not factory folded but looks neatly folded. Here is one from 1954 that definitely isn't factory folded and doesn't even feel particularly neatly folded, which is a shame because it's another wonderful design, like one I would also keep for myself if it was in my size. This is more of a summer dress, but they do show it kind of dolled up with shoes and gloves and pearls. And it has those seams going from the neckline to the hem, so just really a long line, very flattering sleeves, and a lovely flared skirt. This one appears factory folded and it's from 1952. Another amazing design with a beautiful flared skirt. This one does have seams at the waistline and more of a square neckline, and this one has dolman sleeves. And again, love the illustration, though it is unfortunately marred by some tanning from age. This is an amazing design. I don't know if this is even fully going to show up on camera, so I will zoom you in. Look at all of these pin tucks, like holy mother of freaking pin tucks. So you can have the entire bodice pin tucked as well as the top of the skirt, so the volume starts just below the hips, or you can just have the skirt be pin tucked and have a more traditional dolman sleeve bodice. It has a little slit and tie at the collar. Absolutely amazing design, and it is a Vogue special design, so it could have a label in here, I'm not sure. And thankfully this does feel factory folded, because I imagine if this had been used it could be pretty damaged just because the material would be quite weak with all the perforations to mark those pin tucks. And that one is from 1953. This one right here is from 1956. This is another sort of party dress-esque one. This has a waist seam and a very full gathered skirt and an interesting sort of almost off the shoulder raglan sleeve option that you can make with either short or long sleeves. It also looks like there's an optional collar design here as well. And this has sort of a fitted cummerbund sort of to just below the bust, and then the bust is shaped with darts. This one does not feel factory folded, it does not feel nicely folded either, so we'll see if all the pieces are there. This is a super cool design. I'm not going to open it, but it does feel like it could be factory folded or at the very least neatly folded. It's just a beautiful wrap style jacket that ties around the back and buttons at the front. And it's super unique and stylish, and I would expect nothing less from Vogue. And this one is from 1952. This one also feels factory folded, and it's another really cool one. You've got this sort of dolman dolman sleeve jacket that buttons at the front, but you can play around with stripes, and it has a shawl collar. It's just really cool and unique. I don't even fully know how to describe it, and it's not my size. They've all been size 14 thus far, but it's really cool and I like it a lot. I've never seen anything quite like it before, which is always exciting when you go through as many patterns as I do. And this one is copyright 1955 and it feels factory folded. I was gonna say this one doesn't feel like there's very much tissue in there, and I just took a peek, and there is a lot of tissue in there, but there unfortunately are not instructions. So perhaps if these all belong to the same owner, I might find the instructions for this pattern in a different envelope. That is why I generally like to count and document the condition of all the patterns in a single lot, sort of regardless of whether that lot has varied sizes, just because if pieces are missing, if all of those patterns belong to the same owner, sometimes you find the missing pieces hiding in other envelopes. So maybe that'll be the case with this one. This is a beautiful design, and I think this could still find a good home even without instructions because it is so lovely. This is from 1951. It has a lightly gathered skirt and this really cool tab detail, as well as raglan sleeves. And you can have the tabs button over the placket like you see here, or fold back and create kind of the appearance of a collar. Both lovely. This one is not factory folded, but the pieces do appear neatly folded. I see instructions in there. This is another really cool one that if it was in my size, I'd be tempted to keep it for myself. This is basically why I told my mom to invest in this lot. She did not buy these as a gift to me. She was just there, so she was the person who bought them, then I wrote her a check. But there were so many unique designs that I really felt like these were worth having and worth having in my shop, even if I don't have the largest profit margin. So it's a really cool dolman sleeve high neck blouse, and it's got these seams going downward from the collar almost in like a sunburst or sunray effect, which is lovely. There isn't a lot of tissue in this envelope, but it does feel neatly folded and potentially factory folded, and there are instructions in there too. This is copyright 1952. Vogue was one of the few brands that printed that plainly on the fronts of their envelopes. I think Dewberry did it for a while as well. This is just a simple seamed blouse that buttons down the front and has a mandarin collar. I love the polka dots that they used for this illustration, the dark gray shadows on the yellow. It's so striking and lovely. Vogue really did have the best illustrations in my opinion. And this is for a beautiful dress with a pleated skirt and tiny buttons down the front, raglan sleeves, a slash at the front of the bodice, and a tiny little collar. Very, very cute. And there are darts on the back of the skirt that line up with darts at the back of the bodice, which is a detail I always love to see. And then this one does not feel particularly nicely folded. This is also size 14. All the ones I showed you thus far have been 14s, and this one's copyright 1955. This is a really cool coat pattern, a swing coat pattern with amazing sleeves and a shawl collar. The sleeves have a seam down the center so they can create more of this kind of puffed, unique shape, and then there appears to be some dart magic sorcery going on at the cuffs to create the fitted effect. This is the sleeve pattern here, so as you can tell it looks a little bit different than a traditional sleeve pattern. On to the next deck. I'm staying pretty zoomed in here just because a lot of these patterns have cool details that I don't want you to miss out on. So this is a beautiful blouse with pin tuck details and a mandarin collar and a placket down the front. This is one that I would be tempted to keep for myself if it was closer to my size, and I think making alterations to something like this with all the pin tucks would be a pain. I also don't find mandarin collars particularly flattering on me, but it is a beautiful design. I really love how you have that short or that long bishop sleeve option, and it looks like it's cut with more of a tailored kind of men's shirt style at the back. And it looks like the cuffs are assembled with cufflinks, which you don't often see in women's shirts, so really cool design. The tissue for this one does not seem to be in great shape, and I don't see instructions in there either, which is a shame. This is a relatively slim cut dress, and the skirt is shaped with tons of darts, so you can really fine-tune that fit and get a beautiful slope over the hips. It has a placket that buttons to the waist, and it has raglan sleeves and a little mandarin collar, and this is copyright 1950. This is another one that is missing instructions, and the tissue isn't very nicely folded. So yeah, there are definitely patterns from this lot that I'm going to lose money on, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles or the pattern lot turns out sometimes. So this has a relatively fitted skirt. This one is fitted with pleats, so not as tailored and not as nice in my opinion, but you do have double darts at each side of the bodice to fine-tune the fit there. It has a center front seam that is mimicked on the center front of the skirt, even though it doesn't appear to be a continuous seam, and then it has a little collar. So it's very, very cute, just not as detailed as some Vogue patterns are. This one doesn't look like it's ever been opened, so I'm assuming it is factory folded in there, and I can see the instructions through the envelope. This is a really cute blouse pattern. It has dolman or kimono sleeves that are cut in one with the bodice, and then just buttons down the front. This is an elbow length sleeve pattern, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I personally feel like sleeves need to decide, and they need to either be short or they need to be long. But if this did have a long sleeve or a short sleeve option, I'd probably be tempted to keep it for myself. I just love the simplicity of putting together dolman sleeve shirts. insets, so you don't have to deal with an arm side and sleeve insets and everything like that. And I always love blouse that button down the front as opposed to back buttoning ones, since they're a little bit more practical and easier. And I love the proportions of the collar on this. It's kind of not too large. It isn't really small and dainty and would be overshadowed by my enormous head. So very simple but very nicely proportioned pattern. This one has definitely been used. That is what the tissue looks like, so it's quite crumpled and definitely not in its original form. But it looks like there aren't very many pieces in here, so despite the small quantity of tissue, it very well may be complete. This is another simple pattern, but not quite as to my taste. This looks like one that would be really great made out of knits, and it is copyright 1951, so it's just a relatively fitted crew neck style long sleeve or short sleeve shirt. This one feels like it could be factory folded, and this is a beautiful summer dress pattern. You can make this either strapless with a sweetheart neckline, or you can make it with a halter style strap that ties around the back of the neck. And this has a button front and a flared skirt. I want to get this in the shop ASAP because it is so cute and perfect for summer, and I want someone to have the opportunity to make it for this year. And it looks really pretty simple. It's just 8 pieces. Here's another halter style dress. I love the plaid matching or the pattern matching they've showed on this illustration. I also really love the back of this. It has sort of a wrap style back, and I'm assuming that's how it closes as well. And it overlaps enough that you don't need any sort of closures on the skirt. And it's just a really beautiful, lovely flared silhouette. I'm not always the biggest fan of halter style cuts, especially if you have broad shoulders, but this one is really widely cut, so it looks like it would be really supportive and comfortable, and it would also be very flattering. Also, hopefully you guys know whenever I say something isn't to my taste, I'm not trying to disparage you if you like that design or discourage you from purchasing or making something similar to it. It would just be very boring if I didn't have anything to say about the pattern, so I try and kind of share my thoughts, and those aren't going to be positive about every design, but I think that's part of the beauty of reselling designs, is the ones that don't appeal to me will inevitably appeal to someone else, and they can find a home with them and ultimately be used as they were intended, and I love that. So here's one that is my style. This is also size 14. This one is copyright 1953 and feels like it could be factory folded. It's a beautiful flared dress and has a really unique double dart extending diagonally from the side seam. It also has a seam down the center front, so you could really fine tune the fit there. The black and white coloring of this illustration and the hat sort of makes me think of a pilgrim, but I do really like the classic style of this, and it's just really lovely. They also have this interesting little illustration over here showing how you could use mink fur for the cuffs, which is definitely special. This looks factory folded, and the back describes it as being very easy to make. I feel like this might have been a reprint at some point. This pattern obviously isn't, but I feel like Vogue might have reprinted this at some point. But it's a beautiful gathered skirt summer dress, and it looks like it has gathering at the neckline too, so you can really fine tune the fit above the bust and reduce any chances of gape. You can also make this as an apron, which is sort of neat. And the back makes it look especially simple. It just has 4 pieces. Here we have a Vogue special design, which has clearly been used and loved. The tissue feels quite puffy, and it looks a little bit tatty and rusted around the edges. This is a Vogue special design, and it is copyright 1954. This is a beautiful flared dress. It's relatively flat in the front, and then the back flares out beautifully. It's got a low V in the back, and then the front has this scoop neckline. It has really interesting seams. I'm just going to use my scissors to show you. So there's a seam here, and then it goes over, and then it goes back up and turns into almost a princess seam, and this seam is level with a seam on the skirt. So it's just a really neat kind of attention to detail that you don't see in a lot of patterns. And I don't know if you can see, but you can see some of that unique seaming with this piece. So this princess seamish looking piece is actually cut in one with the sleeve as well. So very, very unique and special, and just a beautiful design. So hopefully all the pieces are there. This is one of the ones my mom sent me a photo of. When you're antiquing, you do come across a lot of vintage patterns, and I didn't want her to have to send me photos of every single one because that would be a big ask from her, but I specifically requested her to send me photos of any evening gowns or party dresses that she came across, because those tend to be more valuable and more of a signifier that there might be other rare patterns in that lot. So this was one of the first ones she sent me a photo of, and it really got me excited. So this is a size 14 Vogue special design, so it could have a label, but I don't know for sure. And this is just a beautiful pleated gathered party dress. You can make this with a full length skirt, you can make this with off the shoulder sleeves, you can make this with a T-length skirt, you can make this without straps or sleeves at all, as they show over here. And it's just such a beautiful ball gown pattern that I really just got extremely really excited when she sent me the photo. And this does look like it could be factory folded, which would be amazing and make this a pretty darn valuable pattern. So let's hope for that. This one is super cool as well. This is another Vogue special design, and I love the shaping on this so much. It is a gathered skirt with a slight break from the gathers at the sides. It has a center front seam, so you can really fine tune that fit, and that has this sort of off the shoulder style strap sleeve situation. And I'll pull out the scissors again, and this is the seam line right here. So it's a very flattering seam line, in my opinion. I'm absolutely obsessed with these slightly off the shoulder styles. They sort of bring attention to your shoulders, but they also make your waist look very small in comparison to your shoulders. So it just creates really lovely lines, especially with the very large skirt. So I like that a lot, and it also feels factory folded. This is another Vogue special design, and it feels like it fills the bottom half of the envelope more than the top. So I didn't think it was factory folded, but I just pulled out the tissue and it does appear to be. So this is for a suit, and suits tend to not sell the best, but the dress that goes underneath this suit is beautiful. It's a strappy sweetheart neckline pattern with a lightly flared skirt and a V back. I especially love the lines at the back here. I just think it's really lovely. And again, this has unique seaming. So we have a seam here that runs just from where the strap starts, and then there's a dart right here and a dart right here. So you can really fine tune that fit and perfect it and make a beautifully fitted garment. So that's lovely. And this one is in a size 12 for a 30-inch bust. Here's another Vogue special design. This one is from 1956, and the party dresses were both from 1954. So this is a very, very simple design. I'm sort of surprised this is part of their special design given how simple it is. It is a full-length lightly flared dress with a scoop neckline. They show all of these views, which makes me think you can really play around with it and customize the dress. I'm just surprised that this is the dress they choose to use on the cover, given all of these variations you can make. But when you look at the back, you do see you can make it lightly flared, you can make it more flared with the pleat at the back, or you can make it very, very full, and you can make all of these options with or without sleeves. So yeah, you have views A, B, C, D, E, F, and then you have variations on view F to make a petticoat or just a skirt. So really, really cool and feels factory folded and absolutely packed with tissue. And this is a size 12 as well, but since it's from a slightly later period, it's for a 32-inch bust instead of a 30-inch bust like the last one. And this also printed and perforated, so you can tell it's a slightly later Vogue, even without the date at the bottom. More Vogue patterns. So this is another printed and perforated one for a 32-inch bust in a size 12. This one is copyright 1957. There doesn't appear to be very much tissue in there or any instructions, so we'll have to see if that one is complete or not. This is an over blouse, which means it's not intended to be tucked in, so it ends at the natural waist, and it has a very large collar, princess seams, a button down front, and a seam that goes on the outer edge of the arm to fine tune and customize the fit. This one feels factory folded and is beautiful. It is a size 12 for a 30-inch bust, and I love this. If this was in my size, I would keep it. It is a fitted dress and has a seam down the front and 2 darts, and one of those darts actually extends into a princess seam, which I've never seen before. So you can really fine tune the fit in the waist and the bust and the hips and all of those wonderful things you want with a pattern for a dress you're making yourself, so you can get it to fit you really, really well, which is one of the major pros of making your own clothing. And it has a capelet pattern, and capelets are just superior to all other patterns, so I really love that. This is a size 12 for a 32-inch bust. It is 1956. This one was also 1956 and for a 30-inch bust, so it sort of switches around a little bit. This is a very unique style. It has sort of this overlap, so this overlaps on the other side, but then the button closure is down the center. So I'm curious to how that would look when it's finished. This is another pattern with princess seams and additional darts, so you can really fine tune that fit, as well as a seam down the center front, and it has this little yoke with the button closure on it. It has darts in all of the back and side panels as well, so you can really customize that fit further. This is another size 12 for a 32-inch bust that feels factory folded. My mom sent me photos of this one, and I was like, yes, get them all. I want all of them if they look like this. So this is copyright 1956 as well. This is a ball gown pattern with a huge pleated train, and then the front is actually somewhat flat. It's got this really beautiful wrap detail, and you can make this with straps or without. And here they show the back, so it sort of drapes over the front almost because it has so much volume. So it's just a really cool, really beautiful pattern, and it actually only has 6 pieces in it, so it's relatively simple too. This one feels factory folded, and it's a size 14 for a 34-inch bust. These are for some button-down blouses with or without collars, and again, these all have that shoulder seam that extends into the sleeves so you can customize the fit. This also has a play on princess seams and darts under the bust to fit it further. This is a size 14 for a 34-inch bust for 1956. This is a special design and this feels factory folded. This is beautiful. If this was in my size, I'd be tempted to keep it for a project I've planned in the future. This is a very full flared dress. It has princess seams, and those seams actually line up with seams in the skirt, and then it has a pleat at the front. This is sort of like a V-neck, sweetheart neck hybrid, and then you have off the shoulder cap or elbow length sleeves. And it feels factory folded. I don't know if I mentioned that. And this totally makes me think of Aurora or Sleeping Beauty, her dress, just with the shape of the sleeves and the neckline and the seaming and everything. Like, it just needs that little peplum and that extra length, and then it'd be perfect. So this feels factory folded, but also feels packed with tissue, but probably because it has so many ruffles and you need a lot of tissue to cut out those ruffles and create those ruffles. So this is just a hell of a pattern. They describe it as a full skirt with gathered tiers with or without novelty trimming. Optional under ruffle joined to lower tier. I'm curious how much fabric you need for this. They don't even really say, because there are so many different fabrics that you can use to create the different views and the different ruffles. But this is probably the simplest view, view B, and it looks like you need 4 yards for it. And view A requires over 25 yards of trimming, so that is quite the shopping list for this pattern, but it is really cool and really beautiful. And this is for a 25-inch waist and 34-inch hips. This is a junior Vogue pattern in a size 15 for a 33-inch bust and 37-inch hips. Junior's patterns are cut for more of a pear-shaped figure. This is from the 1940s. I know that because it doesn't have the copyright printed on it, and they started doing that in 1950 or 1951. This has a gathered skirt, a belt, and this sort of V-neck, so you can see a little bit of a slip underneath it. And it's got a double layer, very long collar that almost looks like a cape from the back. It's beautiful, and this could be a lovely evening dress if you made it out of like a brocade or something, or just a beautiful summer dress as they've shown up here, out of some sort of floral cotton. And you can tell they had that in mind because this is the suitable fabric list. That's a very, very long suitable fabric list. And this tissue appears used, and I do not see instructions. This one feels factory folded, and this is another junior Vogue pattern. This one's from 1951, and this is, again, size 15, 33-inch bust, 37-inch hips. It's a very simple design, a relatively fitted skirt with a pleat at the back for movement. It has very small sleeves that is basically just a slightly widened shoulder, so a little bit hangs off the edge of the shoulder, and then it has a placket closure down the front and a relatively high neckline, and it feels factory folded. This is a skirt pattern, a very, very simple skirt pattern, marked 1950, and this for a 28-inch waist and 37-inch hips, and it feels factory folded, and I bet it's very simple. Yep, just 4 pieces of tissue in there. This one also feels factory folded and is in the same size, marked 1951, and these panels are a little bit more gored, so it has a bit more volume. It would offer a little bit more mobility. So I can't remember if these came with this lot or if I just put them in here because I was planning on listing them at the same time, because they're also Vogue patterns in the same sort of sizing. So I will just go through these super quickly in case I've shown them before. This is a relatively fitted Vogue pattern from 1957 and a size 14 for a 34-inch bust. Yeah, this one I've definitely shown before. This is a hopefully factory folded, beautiful special design pattern with this amazing sort of asymmetrical seaming and this draped neckline. It's probably my top 10 favorite patterns I've ever come across. But I'm not keeping it because it would be a pain to alter all of those pieces to fit me. This has probably been used. It is just a pencil skirt pattern with an optional kick pleat from 1957. This one appears to have been used, but the tissue is neatly folded, and this is for a fitted skirt with pleats at the waist as opposed to darts, and a cropped jacket with a collar and cuffs. And then this one also feels used but neatly folded, and it is for a relatively simple dress, but it has this pleat at the back right here, which is mimicked by a pleat at the hem. So it has more volume in the back, both in the bodice and the skirt, which I think is a cool detail. And I really like the collar shape of this one as well. And then it has a placket closure at the front, and you can make this with elbow length or short puffed sleeves. And this is probably from the 60s because it doesn't have the year listed on it, and it also looks like a pattern from the 60s. So that is it for the Vogues, but we do have some McCall's patterns. I think there were also like 2 kids patterns and a men's pattern, which I've already pulled out and organized separately, so I won't be showing them in today's video. These are all size 14 if I recall correctly. This one looks factory folded and is for a really simple raglan sleeve blouse. This has very large puffed sleeves, which I love, and it has a notched lapel, which is a cute little detail, and then it buttons down the front. This one also feels factory folded and is from a slightly later period. This is a beautifully shaped dress, like another one one that I might keep for myself if it is in my size, just because it's so simple and practical for everyday wear with that lightly flared shape. It also has the nice detail of having the front dart line up with the seams in the skirt, and then it buttons all the way down the front, which is another lovely practical thing. This also has dolman sleeves, so you don't have to worry about setting a sleeve. The only thing I'm not 100% sure of with this pattern is that it has sort of a standing collar, and I don't know how flattering that is, but it does make it stand out, quite literally, a bit from other house dress patterns from this period. Great, I found one of the men's patterns, so apparently I didn't sort this one out. This feels factory folded and is from the 1940s, and it's in a size medium for a 38 to 40 inch chest. And it's a nice pattern, I just don't have a lot of luck selling men's patterns. Men's patterns and kids' patterns have not been treating me well recently. This one, however, will probably treat me well because it's beautiful. This is from the 1940s, I'd imagine. It is a Mrs. Sheer blouse. It's got these really cool either lace or pin tucked or potentially both details. And it looks like this is intended to be made out of a fabric with different levels of opacity, so you can see a slip underneath it. And it has embroidery details as well. So actually, I'm guessing that these are pieces of ribbon or kind of opaque trim over an organza layer, and then it has the transfers for the embroidery on them. Something I really love about this is the scalloped kind of pointed collar and sleeves and cuffs of the sleeves. They remind me almost of the petals of a flower, and then it actually has that option on the long sleeves too. This is a size 12. This also feels factory folded. All of the McCall's ones have so far. This is stamped as being from 1956, and it is for a 32 inch bust. This is a fitted skirt, wrap style bodice pattern with dolman sleeves and a shawl collar. This one also feels factory folded, and this is in a size 14 for a 32 inch bust. I love this pattern. I've come across a few copies of it, but never one in my size. If I do, I will probably keep it for myself. I just think the details on this are so cool. I love how you can make the yoke out of contrasting fabric and then have the collar contrast as well. I especially love how on this one they've demoed it with two different colors of buttons to really exaggerate the contrast further. You can have the cuffs either flip down and create this sort of petal effect, or you can have them flip up and look more like traditional cuffs. So just lovely. This is again a size 14. This is a slightly different illustration from McCall's. So this is either an over blouse or a tuck-in blouse. You can use it for both, but the darts carry down below the waist, so you will get slim lines even if you don't have it tucked in. And this has a placket down to above the bust, and you can make this with a mandarin style collar or a turnout lapel. And this has either short or elbow length sleeves, and it looks like there is a puff sleeve option too. And then this one does not feel factory folded, or perhaps there just isn't much tissue in there. Hard to tell at a glance, but this is a relatively simple blouse pattern that buttons down the front, and this has sort of off-the-shoulder arm size that you can forego the sleeves and then just have a sleeveless or dolman sleeve blouse, and it buttons down the front. So that is it for this video, and I'm losing my voice, so I'm clearly out of practice when it comes to talking for a long time on camera. But I really hope you enjoyed this and seeing all of these beautiful patterns. I know I enjoyed sharing them with you, and now I'm excited to take some time today and get a bunch of these counted and be able to document the condition of them so I can get them photographed and up in the shop. As I said, I don't know when these will be listed. I don't know if I will be listing them all at once or over the course of a few weeks. I have been having better luck with listing them more slowly recently, but I do like the convenience of sort of dumping them all in the shop at once. And then if you're interested in multiples, you can get them without having to pay for shipping multiple times. So both have their advantages. I'm not sure which is going to be done for this lot. The best thing to do is to follow me on Instagram for announcements, and also follow me on Etsy so you will get notifications when I update the store. So thanks so much for watching. Feel free to if you'd like to give this video a comment and a like to hopefully get it promoted to more people. That would be great. And make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, because I'm constantly acquiring patterns. Thanks again for watching, and I will talk to all of you very soon.